Now into some market and financial news. There's some public outrage aimed at Shell as it rides in to blast the Wild Coast oceans in its second seismic search for gas. Observers say there was obviously enough found in the unannounced 2018 2D survey of the Wild Coast to excite Shell and 50% partner Impact Oil to carry on blasting and possibly drilling. We're joined now by Daily Dispatch journalist Mike Loewe to talk a little bit more about this. Mike, a very good evening to you and thank you so much for speaking to us. So why has this decision attracted so much attention? Just give us the lowdown on what exactly is happening.
I think it was the way that Shell quietly announced in a notice on November the 4th that they were about to conduct the seismic survey in the Wild Coast waters, and that's what just happened on November the 1st, and that was it. I mean, it's a tiny little ad. And, well, you know, I've been following the Daily Dispatch has actually followed this. Dave McGregor wrote a few pieces at the start of this in about 2013. But it was shelved and nobody thought it was going to happen. And suddenly, boom, there it was. And when I then started speaking to local scientists on that day and started to get a very disturbing picture of what's really going on, I had always thought there was something funny or dodgy about seismic surveying and oil companies. I didn't quite know what it was, but when I found out, well, I was pretty shaken, and I think we ran with the story about those air guns going 10 seconds, up to 260 decibels, 4 or 5 months at a time, and it's just there was a bit of silence, and wow, then people just started really piling in. It was like the whole public and community had the same feelings, and there was just these voices started coming through.
And what we've seen, Mike, as you've reported, is 35 fuel stations dumping Shell. What are they saying is their prime concern by what you've just said?
Well, they gave me a very formal response that they were getting a lot of pushback. Funny enough, in their former Transkei on the Wild Coast, in their stations there, people were very upset. Now, I mean, the news, your radio station was on very important for rural areas, but things take a little bit of time to get through. But, it's been like 2 weeks, and suddenly came the statement from the Express Petroleum that their Transkeian, their former Transkeian people are really not happy. In the metros and so on, I think there's also a bit of a kind of collective silent sense of outrage, which it's been unfortunately, I think, expressed towards some of the Shell franchise owners, which is not a great thing. These are people who live in a top-down structure, but I guess they take a risk. So yeah, that's that one.
So Shell has responded to you saying that they note with concern the outrage, but they continue to being very careful in preventing any fish, marine, mammal, danger, even the wildlife offshore in collecting seismic data. I believe there's also been a response from the minister. What has he said? Is there a deviation from what I've labelled as a heavy-handed, heavy industry approach?
The real truth is Shell is in no position to say that they're not going to do damage in terms of their soft starts and their soft acoustic systems on it. They do not know. But the world body of science and research is starting to come out against them, that it's very damaging. These blasts are immense. And it's easy for Shell to say that, well, on the surface we'll do these things, but they have no idea. And they're definitely not taking these scientific sort of responses seriously at all. And I think that's what's driving people to the point of a frothy fury.
And I want to talk about that, as you say, frothy theory. I think it's Shell that mentions an independent audit in 2020, which says that it proved that measures in the environmental management program sufficiently provide for the avoidance and mitigation of potential environment impacts. But there are, some 120 people that are against this decision who have come together. 132,000 petitioners who are involved in this, but there are also much wider groupings who are part of this.
So let's just deal with one thing at a time. The 2020 audit, in terms of one of the interested and affected parties, very key scientist, came as an absolute sudden little email dropped in his box after 5 or 6 years to say, oh, well, we've done the audit of the authorization, everything's fine, we're going ahead. And he was like, wow. The next thing he heard was this notice being dropped. So he really is the lawyers are finding out as well, there's a lot of concern about how that authorization was wheedled and deedled through the system, and pretense was made that everyone was included. And even though there was apparently a big public participation process in 2014, laws changed, and then they just went all silent, and I think it's very sneaky. We are deeply suspicious on the coast, and I'm reflecting what people are saying about that whole authorization. We're looking forward to the court case that Ricky Stone and Cullinan Association are going to bring against both those ministers. We hope they do. They've been delivered with letters, they've been given responses, and we want to get the full story thrashed out. We want to know. On the second point, the amount of support, well, the Change.org survey is now close to hitting 300,000 people. This thing has gone global, it's gone viral. It's caught us all by surprise because we were just a small, lovely little coastal paper writing about something. Boy, the public response was pretty immense. So that's happening. And then the thing that people don't quite pick up about the story is the sense of mining with no responsibility or accountability.
But is it because they enjoy protection? Because I believe the shareholding of share downstream is quite intriguing.
Oh, it's just so. The ANC owns, I think it's 28% through the Butterpele Trust in the company called. Sorry, I've got to tell you. They've got another company that's the Shell downstream. They own 28% of the deal, and so they have a real direct party interest in it. And I think that's wrong. I mean, they need to come clean about that because this whole fossil fuel exploration exercise along the whole coast.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're going to have to end it there. Daily Dispatch journalist Mike Loewe speaking to us about what's happening in the gas industry and outrage, where you have seen some 35 fuel stations that have broken their relationship with Shell.